We left off with me attaching the bottom skin to the center fuselage of the RV7A, and we're going to pick back up with that, but first we're going to do some parts fitting to that same section. While I'm waiting for a slightly more appropriate time to rivet, appropriate hour to rivet, I'm taking some time to get these fit. Now, if you remember, I took some off the front end. It's a little bit of a wobbly edge I have here, and it turns out I could use to take a little more off. And so I'm sort of happy it worked out like that. I'm just taking this, filing down the roughness, and going into it another maybe 1/16 of an inch in order to get this fit here. From there, I will be able to mark out where I can put some flutes to get this rib to curve with the exterior of the aircraft. So, for those of you thinking, wait, I thought we fluted things to straighten them. Well, yeah, generally that's the case. However, when we need to put a small curve into something, it's a great tool for doing just the opposite. And where this rib meets the exterior of the aircraft, we want it to match that airfoil type shape that the profile, the top profile of our fuselage has. So I'm going to use my fluting pliers to give it a gentle curve. Now what that's going to do is allow us to align the center line of this rib with the center line of these rivet holes so that everything lines up. We can then drill through, cleco it in place, and get ready to rivet. See how it looks. Airplanes are hard. Okay, riveting is done, and thank goodness my hands are just beat up. I'm going to finish what I started earlier by drilling the side ribs into the skin, and then this whole thing gets to get flipped over again. So we're looking for that line that I drew that's on the center of the flange to go right through the center of these holes, pop in a cleco, and then we know it's aligned properly. All right, here we are again with the piece right side up, but not for long. I just have a couple housekeeping items to take care of. Then we're gonna cleco on the seat pans, the baggage floor, and the whole thing is gonna get rotated back upside down over in front of the tail cone, or the rear fuselage. Incredibly exciting and a little worrisome because I'm quickly running out of space. Another piece I'm wanting to tidy up and get completed are these control stick mounts, which I took out a while back. I'm thinking now is going to be a good time to get them positioned for good. Alright, it's exciting to see these skins, these seat pans and baggage floors on. Now they got to come off. Having them on, I can see what adjustments I need to make to the side ribs, and I also need to, before I do anything any further, I need to get the bolts that attach the seat ribs through the spar in place. Those have not yet been torqued down. So I'm going to pull these off real quick, and then it's back to the longerons for some modifications to those before we start to see things come together. This is exciting. Alright, let's start with these bolts. It's truly every builder's favorite step. If they say otherwise, they're lying. Yeah, well, I just did that. You can't bring me anywhere. If it's not torque seal, it's mustard. Don't trust me with a hot dog. Pretty simple. Much like I fluted the bottom to get this nice curve here, we're going to flute the top to get a similar curve. Just need to steer clear of flutes on the holes that I previously marked to make sure that I don't wind up with a flute where I'm going to try to put a bolt or a nut plate. So some quick fluting will temporarily fit those skins back on, make sure everything's lining up, and then I'll pop some holes in it, and we'll stop short of riveting or bolting this one in for now. Looking good. We'll manipulate it just barely by hand when we position these holes. So to get these aligned, I have a 032 feeler gauge that's going to imitate the sheet that is actually going to wind up butting up against this rib. So we need that same gap to run along the side of this rib. I'm using that to space this more so than I am that blue line I put down the middle of the flange. That line does, however, kind of give me a visual key as to where this thing needs to be positioned when I finally punch the hole through. To start, I'm going to modify some pieces that I first had the opportunity to modify back when I was bending the longerons, but didn't. This has literally been on my to-do list for a while, so it's nice to get it done. And it's a relatively simple process. Alright, first hurdle's done. The bandsaw with a little fence, if you will, made pretty quick work of that. I liked it. The next thing is to create those notches in the actual longerons themselves. I have a template, if you will, in the form of the rear deck of the fuselage. We're going to line that up, mark where our notches need to be, and very similar to the notches we put in these, we're going to do it in that angle that comprises the longeron. We're going to try and get some of these longerons in place. That's a problem I didn't expect. Well, I got it slid in place, or tried to, which is harder than it first appears, but we got it. However, the slot that's formed in the bulkhead is not wide enough for the longeron, which is a little frustrating because I feel like it should be, but we'll have to take a file to it. All right, so I sort of let those pieces in, so to speak, widen that hole. Only takes a little bit, but certainly would be nice to know beforehand. So if you're out there and you haven't hit this spot yet, I would suggest widening those holes just a little bit, maybe taking a scrap piece of longeron before you're upside down on the garage floor trying to get those to fit. Let's get the other one in. I gotta flip this one around too, which, as you saw before, I've got literally about 2 inches of spare room to get these flipped around in here. My garage has never felt cramped before. It's really starting to feel cramped today. All right. Whew. So now we gotta get this bulkhead in, and we gotta get that upside down and over here. Golly. Lifting the center section into place took 2 people to get it positioned, and then I spent about an hour tweaking it in order to get it to align. There's a lot of movement available when it's only attached at the bottom like it is, and so I struggled a little bit to get it perfect. It's a tight fit, and I'm not even completely sure that I've got it fit right. So I want to make sure I go look at the plans before I get clecos all the way across. After taking a look at the plans, I found out that I did indeed have everything set up correctly. There's like 3 or 4 layers of aluminum, and you want to make sure they're all in the correct order. What I told myself is that everything is going to fit much better once I have the side skins locking everything into place. It'll help remove some of the movement that currently exists between the center section and aft section of the fuselage. Before those get clecoed on, I have to cut a hole in each to allow for the exterior step of the aircraft. Whoops. may have jumped the gun a bit in a previous episode by putting the reliefs in this seat rib. The instructions now tell you to, through this hole, take a straight edge and figure out what needs to be cut out. I took a little bit more of a scientific approach and did some drawings on the computer. It seems to have worked just fine though. The relief is perfectly lined up with the inner hole in there, and everything's fitting just fantastic. This longeron appears to be bent a little more than I'd like to admit. The bend here probably being a half a degree or so too steep. So I've got it clamped in place. I'm just gonna try to, with everything where it's at, see if I can take some of that bend out, get it to more closely match this skin. Boy, it did not take much, I'll tell you that. Compared to what I had to do to get it to this, that was very gentle, but it looks about perfect right now. Whew, that could have been bad. Welcome to my fort. I just need to get some baggage ribs clecoed here. I'm just getting started on the armrests. These are kind of cool because it's just these little touches that make things real. Like all parts that have a flange and a curve, they need some fluting. I'm just going to gently flute these and then we'll cleco them to the plane. All right. Now I only have 2 of the 3 holes back here. I suppose the last one needs to be match drilled. I'll have to take a look at that. But it fits. And that's my armrest. Kind of hard to practice upside down, but I'm sure it works. Installing armrests, or match drilling armrests. It's just cool, man. There is no lack of details at this point in the build, and it continues to provide details as we go along. If you want to make sure that you don't miss any details, be sure to subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. We're about out of time for this one, but I've got so much more footage left with things like attaching the firewall, the forward cabin, these tricky bends right here. So keep an eye out for the next episode and we'll start to cover those items. I don't have a lot to share on the laser cut parts saga this time around. There's been a couple news releases from Vans. They're working their way through the problem. I'm pretty excited about what they've had to share with regards to structural integrity of laser cut parts. And I think they're still well on their way to putting together a plan. We'll continue to keep updates on that whenever there's something worth talking about. Until then, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching Riot Flies.